Good evening. If folks want to find your seats, we can get this Ballotpalooza started. Good evening, everyone. How we doing? We're doing okay. A little low energy. There's beer in the back, there's soda in the back, there's snacks in the back. Please feel free all evening to go help yourself to refreshments. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our Ballotpalooza. I'm Courtney Nelson, president of City Club. I'm really excited for all of you to be here tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. So in addition to everyone here at Alberta Rose, we also have it streaming on our website. So shout out to everyone watching on our website. So we have a few sponsors we'd like to recognize. We have corporate media sponsors that ensure that we put on the state's best civic programs week after week. So our research partners are HDR, DHM Research, Tonkum Torp, Northwest Health Foundation, and OHSU. We're really thankful for their support and commitment. Please join me in thanking them. All right, so let's get started. So as you all know, we have the ballot measure study reports, and these, like all the reports we have at City Club, are written by volunteer members of the club. We carefully screen all of the potential members for conflicts of interest before they're selected to serve on a committee. Each committee was charged with the important and, as we found out, very difficult task of assisting club members and the public to better understand the implications of each measure and ultimately say yes or no. I'd like to take a quick moment and recognize all the folks who worked on the reports this year. So if you were a member of a committee, if you could please stand, really appreciate your work. Also, a big shout out to our staff. It's a lot of work to support 6 ballot measure studies that are going on at the same time. So thanks to our hardworking staff at City Club for helping us get here this evening. So as you may have noticed, we have the unique situation where 5 of the 6 measures that we studied ended up with having both a majority and a minority recommendation, meaning that we did not have a unanimous opinion amongst the committee members as to whether we should vote yes or no. It's great because these 5 ballot measures happen to be the ones of the 6 that we studied that are going to the ballot in November. So you can leave here tonight feeling very, very informed about these really important ballot measures. So tonight, what we're going to have is an opportunity for you as members to voice your opinions and engage what I think is likely going to be a very lively debate. We will then, after we have the debate, we will have a vote on either the majority or the minority recommendation. And so tonight, when we leave, the majority of the minority recommendation will then go to the full City Club membership for online voting starting tomorrow. So what we're doing tonight, just to be really clear, because it's a little bit different than we did it last time, is we're going to say we either support the majority report or the minority report, and then that's what the whole City Club gets to vote on online starting tomorrow. So we have some folks helping me out tonight. We have Clifford up here, Droke, helping me, and he's our parliamentarian. We also have Chris and Rick, who are going to be working as timekeepers. We're going to be pretty strict on time so that we can get through all of the measures tonight. Just a little note on how we're going to follow the procedures. So we usually follow Robert's Rules of Order, of course, but we're going to use some special procedures tonight. So the way that this is going to work is that first we're going to have study committee members come up and present the majority and then the minority report. We then, club members can sign up and they will be able to come up and testify either yes or no. We have microphones here. There's a little confusion about how this works, so let me just take a second here to explain it. So we have all of the measures. There are sign-up sheets over here for either yes or no. We're going to allow 5 folks to speak for each report on the yes side and the no side. If more than 5 people sign up, then we will use a random number generator to choose 5 folks. So it'll be a random selection if more than 5 people sign up. So we promise it's random, we promise that there's no bias in choosing who gets to be up on the microphone here for the yes and the no. So does that make sense? Are we good? If you haven't signed up and you want to sign up to speak, please feel free to come over. The sign-up sheet's over here and they'll help you get signed up. So once we get to having the committee members speak and then hearing from folks on the floor speak, that's when we'll go for the vote for everyone here tonight. And we're going to be doing that by using those ballot packets that you have, so hold on to those. Once we have the vote, we'll send that to the full membership. A simple majority of the total votes means that City Club supports a position, and then if we end up with 2/3, then we can actually do advocacy for that position. All right, so those are the rules of the land. If you have any questions, you can come whisper them up here to us as we get going. We will start with IP 62, which is public unions, fees, and dues. This is the one of the 6 that did not become a ballot measure, and therefore it's not going to be voted upon in November. But we wanted to present this tonight for debate because we believe that it's an important policy issue that may come up later, either in the legislature or end up on a ballot. So we're going to ask Linda Showman to come up to present the report, and then we will open up the floor for debate from members. We have not had anyone sign up for IP 62 for yes or no. So if you hear Linda speak or you're reading your packet and you change your mind, we'll open the floor briefly after she speaks to let folks come up and say yes or no. Given that we don't have a minority report, the recommendation that Linda's going to go over will be automatically sent to our full membership in the online ballot tomorrow. So Linda, please come join us.
Thank you. IP 62, which will not appear on the November 2016 ballot, was filed in September of 2015 with the goal of passing what would be referred to as the No Politics from My Pay Without My Say Act, and which would impact public employee unions. However, because this petition is similar to others in states throughout the country, your committee presents this report as information, with the presumption that the issue is not dead. Your committee researched union law, read case histories, unearthed credible blogs from diverse positions, called witnesses with contrasting opinions, and debated among themselves. We learned that whether applied to private or public workplaces, union law structure, process, and practice is very complex. The actual language of this measure is convoluted and the purpose diffuse. It would substantially change several aspects of Oregon labor law, and we endeavored to uncover both the immediate results and long-term consequences of the proposal. Union membership is optional for public employees. Those who opt out of membership pay a fair share, because as part of the bargaining unit, they benefit from aspects of union collective bargaining and representation, defined by the U.S. Supreme Court as chargeable. If enacted, this initiative petition would create a third category of public employees, who, although union members with all privileges of membership, would pay only a partial dues for core bargaining costs to avoid supporting activities not, quote, germane to collective bargaining, unquote. Your committee is unanimous in recommending a no vote because we found no pressing need for such a measure, and the chief petitioners declined to be witnesses. The stated goal could have been achieved with a few small changes in the law, avoiding unwarranted harm to public unions. It establishes a process for trivial and expensive lawsuits, which would drain union coffers. It would unquestionably create a free rider effect. It would paralyze the legislature in the use of 7 core labor law terms, and we acknowledge the 2008 City Club report on the initiative petition process, which points to the state legislature to manage this type of issue. I feel privileged to have served on this research committee, and I am personally grateful for the opportunity to have learned more about unions and their place in our society. I urge you all to read this report in full. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, no one signed up ahead of time to say yes or no to debate on the floor. Did anyone change their mind in the last few minutes? We have Miss Felisa. Felisa, you have 1 minute to share your opinion on the no vote.
Wow, this is significantly worse. Hi. I am Felisa Hagans. I'm a proud union member, and I am in opposition to this measure, but in support of the majority's report on this measure. It's very clear that states with laws that restrict union membership, they have lower rates of wages in those states. They often have healthcare benefits, lower take-up rates of employer healthcare benefits, and that we've had a strong public union collective bargaining law in this state since the early 80s and late 70s. We've seen huge gains. I believe that union members have contributed incredibly to our society here in Oregon, advocating for things like public education and funding for public education, advocating for things like universal health care in our state, and they've been very committed to not only the causes that directly affect them, but minimum wages, environmental causes, and have championed the issue of women's rights. So I'm encouraging those folks in the room to join and vote yes on the majority, but no against the measure. Thank you.
And we have someone on the yes side.
Hi, I'm Eric Fruits, City Club member, also a member of the Research Board, and also a dues-paying member of the American Federation of Teachers. Why does someone with a PhD need to be represented by a union? Why does a lawyer need to be represented by a union? Those are two areas in the public sector that are represented by unions. I'm smart enough to deal with my employer. I can negotiate a deal. The problem is actually the union depresses my wages. I teach in the business school. I can negotiate a higher wage than what the union negotiates for me. Why am I forced to pay dues to a union that I don't want to be a member of? Why am I forced to pay dues to an organization that actually actively campaigns on issues that I am opposed to? My money is being spent on stuff that's in opposition to things that I believe in and things that I work on. Union membership should be voluntary. It's a club, and it could be a voluntary club, and they can represent their own union members. The federal law says that you can negotiate solely for union members. I urge you to support this measure and vote yes.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the floor? Okay, so the debate has concluded on that. Again, the majority recommendation of voting no will be put to the entire membership tomorrow, starting tomorrow via the online voting. Thank you to Linda and the entire committee for your work on IP 62. All right. Yes, thank you. Okay, so next up we have the report on ballot measure 94, judicial retirement age. The rest of these, the remaining 5, we have majority and minority opinions, so we will hear from committee members that will support each side. So we have Zoe Klingman, who will represent the majority recommendation, and Ken Fairfax will present the minority recommendation. We will then open the floor for debate. We only have one person signed up for the yes, so again, if folks are interested in signing up for yes or no, you can line up after we hear from the committee members. So, Zoe?
Thank you, everyone. So just some background on this measure before I get started. The Oregon Constitution currently requires that judges retire the year that they turn 75. So Measure 94 seeks to do away with that requirement. So a yes vote would amend the Constitution to abolish mandatory retirement for judges, whereas a no vote would retain the status quo, keep mandatory retirement in place. So the majority of our committee recommends a yes vote on this measure. And I will say that our committee did find compelling theoretical reasons to support mandatory retirement. Mainly, it's about ensuring the competency of the judiciary, the effectiveness and the efficiency of the judiciary. But we found over the course of our research that, at least in Oregon, mandatory retirement has a really limited impact on any of these issues. It just doesn't match the facts on the ground. So we found that very few judges are actually, in fact, forced to retire at the age of 75. Instead, they mainly, for the most part, retire far earlier, partially because they're incentivized to do so by their retirement benefits. So it's unlikely that doing away with mandatory retirement would have a large impact on more than a few individuals. And it's unlikely that it would have a large-scale impact on the competency of our judiciary at large. On the other side, however, having mandatory retirement age in place is unfair. It does real harm to people. Forcing individuals to retire at a certain age is just an incredibly inexact method of ensuring the competency of the judiciary. It sweeps out the good judges with the bad. And it does a real disservice to individuals who are willing and capable of continuing to serve their state. So age can bring with it diminished ability. We all know that, but gerontological research suggests that how a person ages and how fast they age depends on a whole host of factors, including their overall health, their genetics, even their socioeconomic status. So we feel that existing accountability measures for judges, while they're not perfect, do a better job of applying a more tailored standard to the question of whether individual judges are competent. So just to conclude, mandatory retirement for judges is ineffective. It doesn't meaningfully impact the makeup of our judiciary here in Oregon. And it's unfair. It does real harm to individuals and to society. So I humbly ask you to vote with the majority of our committee and vote yes on Measure 94.
Good evening, everyone. The minority concurs with much of the research and analysis presented by the majority. We basically just disagree on whether there is a sufficiently compelling case to warrant changing the Constitution of Oregon. One key finding on which we agree is that whether this measure passes or fails, the result will have only a small impact on the Oregon judiciary, because very, very few judges choose to serve until their 75th birthday or beyond. Now, at best, repealing the mandatory retirement age might have a slight positive impact by allowing those few elected judges who want to continue to serve after the age of 75 to continue as elected judges. Now, of course, competent judges are already able to continue serving beyond the age of 75 by being appointed as pro temp judges when the need arises, and it always arises every year. At worst, the approval of this measure might have a negative impact by decreasing the overall effectiveness of the Oregon judiciary. As one witness pointed out, the negative impact could be amplified by because the decisions of one judge impact the lives of hundreds or even thousands of people every year. Did you notice those squishy little words, might and could? One problem that your committee faced is that the backers of this measure made no attempt to assess its overall impact on the judiciary. Instead, as noted in the full report and according to first-hand witness testimony, the amendment was drafted in response to an individual lawyer who was unable to run for a judgeship after the age of 75. What made this committee's job even harder was that key data, such as the relationship between the age of judges and the number of complaints filed, or even what is the average age of Oregon judges, was not available to the committee. Some witnesses supported the amendment, some opposed it. But every witness prefaced their comments with the caveat that they do not have data on which to base an opinion. In sharp contrast, the mandatory retirement age of 75 that was approved by more than 82% of Oregon voters in 1960 grew out of 2 years of research done at the behest of the Oregon legislature on the relationship between aging and the effectiveness of Oregon judges. Additional research conducted by the City Club of Portland in 1960 affirmed the results of the legislature and strongly endorsed the mandatory retirement age. As much as the minority shares the majority's wish or hope that times have changed and the mandatory retirement age can be eliminated without any adverse consequences, absent updated research showing that the conclusions of the 1960 studies are no longer valid, the minority view is that there is not sufficient evidence to warrant changing the Constitution. 75 is the new 55 is a great slogan to motivate older Americans to stay active, and it's a good marketing slogan. It is not a quantitative assessment of judicial competence. Thank you.
Okay, we will now open it to the floor for debate. We have one person who signed up for a yes vote. That is Joe Smith. If anyone else would like to speak on this, they may line up. Go ahead and just line up on behind the microphone. Joe, please begin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7 times 7 is 49. 12 times 13 is 166. If given time, I can give you both the history, the rationale, the holdings, and the significance of Marbury versus Madison, Gibbon v. Ogden, and Roe versus Wade. The point, I'm 81 years old. The point, I turned 75 over 6 years ago.
I'm Paul Meyer, 63-year member of the City Club. I was one of the leaders in the fight to admit women to the club, and I spoke about how that was invidious discrimination. Well, I fought discrimination, whether it's racial, gender, sexual, or age, and age discrimination is no different than any other.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on the yes or the no? Okay, thank you. We will now do our first vote of the evening. So the thing to remember is that City Club policy is that only club members are allowed to participate in the debate and the vote. And so if you have not signed up to be a City Club member yet and you're getting excited and want to start voting, run to the back and get your voting packet. We can get you included in the vote. So the way that we're going to do this is that we are going to, everyone has their packet, everyone has a yellow cover sheet, and we're going to do a simple raising of the hand. So the first side of the debate is club members who support the majority report recommending a yes vote on the ballot measure 94. Please raise your yellow sheet. Keep them up high, keep them up high. Some of these are going to be a little easier than others to count. They're coming to the front, they're coming to the front. Hold them up, almost done. Okay. If you would like, so everyone ballots down. If you're going to vote no on the ballot measure 94, please raise your yellow ballot. Okay, I think we have a clear majority yes. So the yes majority recommendation will go to the full membership for the vote tomorrow. Thank you to Zoe and Ken and the entire committee for their hard work on this measure. All right, on to the next one. So we will now turn to ballot measure 96, lottery funds for veteran services. We're going to have Kyle Thomas present the majority report and Muriel Lezak present the minority report. Kyle and Muriel, come on up.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to deliver the report that the Majority Committee recommended for Measure 96, which would amend the Oregon Constitution to require 1.5% of net lottery proceeds be dedicated to a veteran service fund. And we are recommending a yes vote on this measure. Based on projected lottery proceeds, this measure devotes $19.5 million in veteran services in the next biennium, more than doubling funding dedicated by the state for this purpose. Why is this important? Veterans outreach leads to more federally funded veteran services. In 2014, Oregon veterans received $2.5 billion in pension, education, and health care benefits from the federal VA. That's services for 100,000 veterans. The VA models that there are over 330,000 veterans in Oregon that may or may not be eligible for some form of veteran services. There's a tremendous quality of life impact for individual veterans and a direct financial and economic impact to Oregon. Federal funding will also free up state capacity and county and local capacity to serve other needy individuals who do not qualify for other forms of veterans benefits. Second, these veterans have earned these benefits, and the process is very hard to navigate. Oregon, unlike many other states, lacks a federal military facility, which is a natural organizing point for veteran service delivery. An eligibility for veteran services sometimes requires extensive proof. For veterans with housing insecurity, physical or mental disability issues, this process is daunting. These funds also support veteran service officers, typically individuals who work on the county level and are trained to help veterans navigate the arduous process of receiving and qualifying for veteran services. And finally, from a pure economic perspective, Paul Evans, who is a state representative, a veteran himself, and the Veterans Coordinator for the previous governor's administration, indicates that for every dollar a state spends on veteran services, it has the potential to receive $257 in federal return. Even the opponents of this measure, of which there was only one, Tax Fairness Oregon, asserted that this is a proper and prudent use of state funding. They argued against the measure solely due to the fact that it has the potential to take away from the education spending dictated by the Oregon Lottery. If you're a longtime tenured member of City Club, or if you enjoy in your free time perusing the report archives, you may notice that there are two previous City Club reports that talk about the permissibility of using initiative petitions to restrict state spending. The majority feels contrary to those reports. This is a constitutional measure. The Oregon Lottery is enshrined in the Constitution. The only way to change the Constitution is through this kind of popular vote. Also, the legislature voted to do this unanimously. So for those reasons, we recommend a yes on the measure.
Increasing funding for veterans outreach is a worthy and very practical goal. However, Measure 96 is an unfortunate example of the end not justifying the means. There's a better way to achieve this goal than through the Constitution. This goal should not be accomplished through a constitutional amendment. First of all, using the Constitution to create funding resources is contrary to the stated purpose of a Constitution, that is, defining the powers of government, creating its important institutions, and protecting civil liberties. Measure 96 does none of these. Secondly, Putting this very small funding measure into the Constitution essentially renders this funding process permanent, as it is difficult to undo an item in the Constitution. While the money is needed now, we hope that it will not be needed 10 or 20 years from now. Third, passing Measure 96 would set bad precedent for funding state projects and needs. Do we want to clutter our Constitution with numerous funding items that just simply bypass the legislature? And four, this kind of funding, responsive to current needs, should be done by the legislature, which can best determine how much and when money is needed for any given purpose. Moreover, the majority conclusion supposes that increasing federal benefits for Oregon veterans will bring many more federal dollars into Oregon than the cost to the state for funding veterans' outreach programs. This prospect of more federal dollars coming into Oregon should give the legislature ample reason to allocate these funds as soon as possible and to not go through the Constitution to get into lottery funds for this purpose. In short, this is an instance of using the Constitution to milk a cash cow. Even though the goal is worthy, it should be accomplished by the legislature. Please vote against Measure 96 and preserve our Constitution from this indignity.
Thank you to both Kyle and Muriel. We will now open the floor for debate. We have two people who have signed up for against, which is the no. No is over here. So if Peggy Allen and Carl Vander Sander, if I said that correctly, can come line up on the no. If we have anyone else, 3 other folks on the no, and up to 5 people on the yes that would like to speak, you're welcome to come and line up. So again, we're giving each person 1 minute, and you've got a timekeeper right in front of you to keep you honest. So Peggy, we will start with you.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Allen, a proud City Club member. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah, excellent. I'm Peggy Allen. I'm a proud City Club member. In the past 20 years, the City Club of Portland has studied the initiative process twice. City Club members adopted both research reports that cautioned against using the initiative process to mandate state expenditures and revenues. Such measures, they concluded, confound the legislature's constitutional requirement to balance the state's budget and negatively affect the state's bond rating. It is fundamentally an unsound way to manage the state's budget and finances. I'm disappointed that this year's committees ignored the important and wise precedent of the civic organization. This measure, as well as measures 97, 98, and 99, all run afoul of our past research recommendations. I urge members to vote no on all of these measures. Thank you.
I'm Carl Vander Zande, and I'm a new City Club member, and what she said. No, so I joined the City Club because you have a reputation for really good public policy. And I'm against this measure because it's really terrible public policy. We should not be budgeting by ballot measure. It's the wrong way to do it. And furthermore, we should not be budgeting by constitutional amendment. It's crazy. It'll still be there in 100 years. Hopefully we don't have veterans in 100 years. We don't need a constitutional amendment for this. So I have to read my notes here. You know, I grew up here, and anybody can buy their way onto the ballot now. And I know that this wasn't bought onto the ballot, but we've got to stop restricting our legislature and doing end runs around them so that they can't budget our money. California had a huge fiscal crisis, and part of the reason is because so much of the money was budgeted this way and the legislature couldn't fix it. So I hope the City Club will reject this because it's bad policy. Thank you.
Just want to make sure we have no one here on the yes side. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, my name is Rick York, and I'm a member. I qualify to speak on this for two reasons, and all the other measures. One, I love the outdoors, and I love children. Two, I'm a veteran, and as you can probably tell, I'm a geezer veteran as well as a veteran geezer. Three, I actually sat on the last committee that examined the initiative and referendum, as did Muriel. Using the initiative for things like this is contrary to the very function of a constitution. It has no business. Secondly, currently Oregon lottery funds go 53% to education and 27% for economic development, both of which were the intended purposes. Every time we pass one of these lottery allocations, we cut into those two critically important areas. I would strongly urge everybody here to vote no on every single revenue allocation initiative.
We've got someone on the yes side. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris Lowe. I joined City Club a year ago, but I've been following stuff coming out of here since I came to college in 1977.
Welcome.
I value the public policy input. I would like to make two observations. One is, this is not an initiative. It's a referral from the legislature, a unanimous referral from the legislature. They are not restricted, if we're concerned about restricting the legislature, we should ask, why did they refer it? And I'll tell you why I think they did it. It's because the lottery is already in the Constitution. So the only way to change how you spend the money on the lottery is through amending the Constitution. I would totally support taking the lottery out of the Constitution. I'd love to see a commission to rewrite the Constitution according to the principles that the No person laid out. But that's not what we have now, and this is the way to improve something.
Okay, anyone else on the yes or the no side? Okay, so we have one more person. Go ahead.
Mary Nolan, and I'm City Club member. I just want to correct something that the previous witness said. The Constitution authorized the lottery, but it authorized the legislature to spend lottery revenues within the confines of the broad service areas. The legislature is empowered to do this. It is not required to be done by the Constitution.
We've got someone else on the yes side. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Casey Hansen, City Club member. I understand you make very cogent arguments on the other side. We live in extraordinary times. We do not have federal funding. We have a Congress that has stopped funding for so many services. We have veterans that live on the streets, and believe me, I know it, I live in Lentz. They estimate there are 500. There's more than 1,000 people living on the Springwater Trail, some of them for 10 years. If we can reach one veteran, this is worth it.
So that concludes our debate. So we're going to do the voting a little bit different this time. We're going to do a quick yes, if it seems like it's yes and no, if it's obvious. Otherwise, we will count if we need to. So the voting is voting yes. If you're supporting the majority and voting yes on the ballot, please raise your gold ballot now. Ooh, this is going to be a close one, I think. Okay, ballots down. If you would like to recommend voting no, please raise your ballot. Okay, So the minority report will be put forward to the entire City Club for the online vote. Thank you to Kyle and Muriel and the entire committee for your work on this important measure. We're going to do a quick interlude, and our executive director, Mike Marshall, is going to come up with some announcements. Mike?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Courtney. I also want to say thank you to all of you for being here. This is City Club at its very, very best. Civil dialogue, disagreement, and a few surprises, as we just saw. Courtney thanked the staff earlier, and I want to just echo again, and particularly I want to call out Jean Marie Halleck, who's our new Research and Advocacy Director, who started in June and basically has been drinking from the fire hose ever since, because we've had these 6 ballot measures as well as this event tonight, which has only been put on once before, and we've pretty much doubled the size tonight. So thank you for that. The other person I want to acknowledge is Maggie Zack, our intern, who has done an extraordinary job this summer and was very involved in the logistics of tonight and heads back to college tomorrow. So we are going to miss her very, very much. And then if everyone who's volunteered here tonight to do check-in, to do the different tables, if you could just stand up real quick. We couldn't do this event without our volunteers. So. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was our upcoming calendar for September. We have some amazing events, and we've sort of jump-started very quickly because we have yet another addition to the staff, which is Edward Gutierrez right here, Facebooking the event as we speak. He's our new program and communications manager, and really brings a great vision for what our programming should be in the future. And understands social media like no one else. So, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to do my best here, and I'm not going to get to everything, but you should all know on September 6th, the New Leaders Collective is sponsoring a debate between Commissioner Steve Novick and his opponent, Chloe Udele, which will be at the Slide-In in the Southeast. That should be terrific. I don't know that they've yet come together and done a debate, so this will be really interesting. The Friday Forum on September 16th we'll have the new police chief, and the focus will be the Department of Justice's settlement update, what has happened, what still needs to be done. I think it was even in the news today that is something that is a particular import to the city and is a little complicated, and I have to admit, I don't understand it. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then on September 20th, 2 of our groups, the Government and Public Policy Issue Forum and the Arts and Innovation Issue Forum, who Matthew Landcamer was standing in the back, there he goes, and Raylene McMillan is here somewhere. She chairs the Public Policy Issue Forum. They're putting on a forum about the arts tax at the Milagro Theater. And instead of just having a panel discussion arguing back and forth about it, they're going to have a series of folks in conversation, I think kicking off with an art student and Commissioner Nick Fish. There will be a performance at the start of the show. It should be really engaging and interesting, and obviously there's a lot of questions that we all still have about the merits of the arts tax. On September 23rd, we're doing a Friday Forum, which is What Can Other Nations Teach Oregon About Healthcare? Obviously a really, really important issue that is not going away, is not receding from the public national debate. And lastly, on September 30th, the Friday Forum will be what we do best, which is we're sponsoring the 2 gubernatorial candidates, the main gubernatorial candidates, in a debate. And we will be announcing soon the moderator, the format, and all kind of good stuff like that. That's just September, folks. We are doing tremendous programming. If you haven't been to an issue forum, please go online and look at them. There's really amazing work that's going on there, and there's usually 1 or 2 events a month. Civic Drinks is coming up as well. We're going to do it with the Makers community in September. I think October we're still trying to figure out, but in November, Civic Drinks is on Election Day. So we're going to do something around watching the results together, and I would encourage all of you to attend. So, which brings me to the whole reason I'm up here, which is everyone here who's a member, raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands raised. Now look around, and is there someone sitting near you without their hand raised? Do not let them leave without becoming a member for $98 tonight. Tell them you paid either $165 or $275 for your family membership, and they are getting a deal. But we're only as effective as our members are active. And if we want to continue to be a part of the robust and ever-changing public debates, public policy debates in Portland, in Oregon, then we need to continually be increasing our membership. And that's on all of us. Staff need to be recruiting more members, our Board of Governors need to be recruiting more members, and our members need to be recruiting more members. So please, if you're not a member, tonight's the night to do it. If you are a member, do not let that person sitting next to you leave without becoming a member. Walk them to the table in the back. So thank you again for being here. Thanks to all the researchers who did this, and thank you to President Courtney Nelson.
I have the easy job tonight. This is super fun. All right, so we are going to continue on. Our next ballot measure is ballot measure 99, lottery funds for outdoor school. Oh, I wanted to mention really quick, we've got seats in the front. If people in the back who are standing want to come sit, there's room up here. Also, as a reminder, there's beer and stuff in the back, and don't forget to tip your bartenders and all that good stuff. Okay, ballot measure 99, lottery funds for outdoor school. So we're going to hear again from the majority report and the minority report, starting with Laura Labar for the majority. And then we will hear from Steve Johnson for the minority. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Ooh, I'm a little short for this podium. There we go. So measure 99 would, similarly to what we just... Can't hear you? Okay. I'll just crowd the mic. So Measure 99 would create a dedicated funding stream in the Oregon Lottery Fund for providing all Oregon 5th and 6th graders with a week-long outdoor school experience if it is approved. It would basically fall within the economic development section of the Oregon Lottery. So I'm here on behalf of the majority, of which I was a member, and I will be honest with you and tell you that we did struggle with this decision. Not the least of which was because of the complication with the initiative process that we just mentioned in determining funding, and also because our witnesses ostensibly did demonstrate that the funding might come out of the Budget for Business Oregon, which is an economic development body. However, our research showed that outdoor school is a priority for Oregon because this has demonstrated positive outcomes for students again and again, especially the most vulnerable students like English language learners. And it should not be something students have access to based on whether or not they can pay, or their families can pay, or their districts have talented grant writers. It's so much a priority in Oregon that the legislature actually approved outdoor school for all, but just failed to add in a funding mechanism. So our majority did not see this as usurping the role of the legislature so much as finishing their work for them. And finally, as far as economic development goes, we're talking about bringing jobs to rural parts of Oregon where a lot of these camps are located, especially for the 18 to 25-year-old set, one of the hardest hit groups by the labor crisis, young people who need their first real jobs. And also, we're talking about experiential science and math education for young people who we're hoping will grow up and use that experience to take those STEM jobs that are growing by the minute in the Pacific Northwest. So that concludes my summary of the majority perspective. Thank you.
City clubbers, Portlandiers, Oregonians, lend me your ears. I come not only to praise outdoor school, but to also urge you to reject this outlandish funding measure. The minority of the committee agrees with the majority that outdoor school has a great value. What we disagree is this is not the right funding measure. Our concerns with the measure include, we've heard a lot about it, so I'm not going to bore you, the initiative process is not the way to fund things properly. Voters are going to be confused due to misleading information. A reduction in funding is going to take money away from business development. There's no guarantee for equal access to funding, and the measure probably won't provide the total amount of jobs that are promised. So I've scratched out a whole bunch because Muriel did a much better job of talking about the initiative process than I can, so I'll save you that time again. Well, let's talk about the misleading language in the proposal. It says that this is going to be funded by unallocated lottery funds. Well, that is misleading because I can guarantee you every dollar and every dime and every penny of lottery funds is allocated and probably over-allocated by the legislature every biennium. So it's not unallocated funds. The funds that go to this will take funds away from something else. It also says, and I noticed as they were passing out flyers outside, it says this is to save outdoor school. This isn't to save outdoor school. This is to expand outdoor school. Outdoor school, if this measure is voted down, outdoor school will continue on like it has for many years. Most of the money that will be taken away from, will be given to outdoor school if this passes, will come out of the economic development funds, probably from an organization called Business Oregon. Every year, Business Oregon creates and saves thousands of jobs in Oregon. It creates more income tax returns. It sponsors the film office and does many things to encourage business in small communities throughout the state. If money is taken away, we will probably lose staff in the Business Oregon office and also affect the amount of funds that can be used for business development. This measure probably won't also guarantee the equal access, because if funds go away, large cities like Portland will be able to figure out a different way to get the money, but large rural areas will not. So we'll be punishing rural areas on one hand and not the other. And if you really look at it, the proponents say there's about 600 jobs that are going to be provided. If you really look under the covers, that's really only about 200 jobs. We urge you to vote no.
Thank you both. Okay, so we have voting yes. We have 5 people signed up, so that will be the full complete list of folks signing or being able to speak for the initiative. We have 3 folks signed up for against, so if there's 2 other folks that want to sign up or want to come down, they can. So we will go back and forth. We will start with the 4. Nick Hardig, you can go ahead and begin. The other folks that we have signed up to vote or to speak for are Wendy Gerlich, Patty Carlin, Susan Kelly, and Morgan Gratzweiser. On the against, we have Wynn, Carl, and Rick York. So Nick, go ahead and begin.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nick Hardig, Executive Director of the Audubon Society of Portland. And simply stated, Oregon should put lottery funds to the greatest use for which the lottery was created to support. That's education, the environment, and economic development. Measure 99 ensures that. And outdoor school has been in decline for many years since the mid-'80s. It used to be that 90% of children had 5 nights of overnight outdoor education. Now it's in the 50s, and in Portland it's only 3 days. So the measure scrambles for funding, and those districts that have the least funding have suffered the most. So it is an issue of equity, absolutely. Also, through Measure 99, with outdoor education for every child, we can provide exactly the type of natural experience of health, science and technology, and life skills that can't happen in the classroom. This would be a historic measure for Oregon. It would shape future generations and future landscapes. Thank you.
Wynn?
Wynn, can you hear me? Is that coming out there? Wynn Wakala, City Club member. This is about democracy. Democracy doesn't mean just majority. Democracy means standing up for the little guy. How many laws do we have that help the physically disabled, even though most of us aren't? This takes money away from rural areas. 75 positions would be eliminated in Business Oregon. That is over half of the staff. They created, in 2015, and retained 8,000 jobs. Those jobs are out in rural Oregon. So instead, we're going to allow 8 kids in Portland to go to outdoor school and only 2 in rural areas, and yet their dads are losing their jobs. This is not right. As Democrats, as Republicans, as standing up for democracy, we need to also stand up for the small guy, those rural areas. They need their jobs, and they need to be able to come back and have their kids have jobs there too.
Wendy?
Hi, I'm Wendy Gerlach, City Club member, outdoor school graduate. I support this program because I see it as a way to provide outdoor education statewide on an equitable basis. I think my children, all of whom went to Portland Public Schools and had a good experience at outdoor school, would have gotten access to that out of doors anyway, but many kids wouldn't have. I became most committed to this campaign really because I went to a nonprofit that was offering programs you had to apply, parents had to pay, and they were doing great results. But that is such a small sector of children. So I really support you to vote for this measure. It will provide broad-range, statewide, equitable access to the outdoors, which we need for our economy, for the biological education of our children, and for other benefits like kids acting as counselors and children having good social experiences that just aren't at their desks. Thank you.
Carl?
Carl Van der Zanden, City Club member. There's 2 big problems with this measure. The first is that we're asked as citizens to decide where money should go, but we're not told where money comes from. I read the other day, I work in alternative energy and climate change, and I read the other day that one of the programs that's threatened by these measures reallocating these funds is our climate change work in Oregon, alternative energy work in Oregon. So that's what we lose, perhaps. The other problem is that Oregon's become a place where anybody with $100,000 can put their pet issue on the ballot. And while I totally support outdoor school, I don't think we should support this strategy of getting your project funded or your activities funded. It's a bad precedent, and it happens all the time. And if we continue to do it, we just tell people that if you have $100,000, you can buy your way into funding in Oregon rather than getting it through the legislature. Thank you.
Patty?
Hi, Patty Carlin, City Club member. I support this measure not just on behalf of education, but on health and health equity. I work for the Oregon Public Health Institute, and we do a lot of work in both of those arenas. I support this because kids need to be outdoors. It's the healthy thing, and
so those children are not getting the opportunities that mine did to go camping, to go to the ocean, to go to the mountains and to these beautiful campsites like Camp Howard, which is a wonderful, one of the many sites. So I urge you to support outdoor school.
I'm Byron Palmer, member of the City Club and past member of the Research Board. Although I agree that all of these measures to take and allocate money from the lottery funds are wonderful, and I think the outdoor school is absolutely great, this is not the way to do it. We should not be amending our Constitution. We should not be taking the job of the legislature that's supposed to be allocating this money and taking it away from them. They need to step up to the plate and do their job. The better thing to do is to talk to your representatives and tell them that this is what you would like them to support. They obviously agree, but they don't have the backbone to follow through and actually allocate the money. So I vote no.
Morgan?
Good evening. My name is Morgan. I'm a City Club member. I am here just to voice my personal experience. I went out and actually collected signatures for Outdoor School for All. It was my first time doing some sort of a signature collecting experience. And I just have to say, I was blown away by the number of supportive people who were so in favor of this, and they were so surprised that this wasn't available and accessible to all 5th and 6th graders. And so many people in our community just take it for granted. They did the program, they loved it, their kids loved it, and folks were shocked that this wasn't actually accessible. And so I would just definitely support this, as we've heard from many folks, and we support Outdoor School as a community, and I would just like to say yes, so thank you.
So we've heard from 5 folks on the yes. Was there anyone else on the no side? Okay. So the debate is now closed, and we will vote. Again, we'll do the yellow ballots, and if it's close, then we will count. So first, City Club members who support the majority report recommending a yes vote on ballot measure 99, please raise your gold ballot. Okay. Ballots down. If you'd like to vote no on this measure, please raise your hand. Ooh. I think we're going to have to count this one out. Yeah, Jean Marie? Yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead and count. So all ballots down. So if you, again, are voting yes for this measure, please raise your ballot so we can count. Keep them up high. Thanks for bearing with us. You guys are a very good audience. It's very quiet in here. Okay. Ready, Jean Marie? Okay, ballots down. Okay, so now everyone who wants to vote no, recommend no, please raise your ballot. Okay, results? The minority, the no. So the no carries, so the minority report will be sent to the full membership for online vote. Thank you, Laura and Steve, and the rest of the committee for your work on ballot measure 99. All right. So we've got 2 more left. Next up is ballot measure 98, High School Graduation and College and Career Readiness Act. All right, so this report was really unique in that the committee was evenly split, so they could not come to a decision. Half of the folks wanted to vote yes, half of the folks wanted to vote no. So tonight, when we vote, we'll be deciding whether or not, again, the majority or the minority report will go to the, or not the majority report, just which side will go to the full membership for a vote. So we're going to have Janet Peak speak on behalf of the committee who wants everyone to vote yes, and then we have Kurt Bedell for folks who to vote no. All right, we'll hand it over to the both of you.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a big mouth. I kind of quiet when I'm by myself, but you could probably hear me without. But is that good? I'm also having a vision problem here. So Each year in Oregon, 10,000 students fail to graduate high school on time. These are the same kids that when they come out of the 8th grade, there. I love tech support. So these are the same kids who, when they came out of 8th grade, were at or above average of their peers across the country in mathematics and reading. When they come to graduate, we're at the bottom. I think everybody knows that. When I moved here a few years ago, I was absolutely shocked because I loved everything about Oregon except that factor. Oregon's dug itself into this hole for decades by declining funding in K through 12. We currently are spending 10% less than the national average for states. In the upcoming biennium, and this has been mentioned before, but Oregon is projected to collect an additional $1.7 billion in state taxes over the tax revenue from this biennial. So it's almost a 9% increase without adding a new tax. Now, Measure 98, the High School Graduation and College and Career Readiness Act, would require the Oregon legislature to create a new fund by allocating an amount equal to $800 per Oregon high school student to remedy this graduation rate. If the general fund revenue increase projection is not met, the dollar commitment would be reduced and the program's phased in over 3 years instead of starting immediately or over the 2-year period. And further allocations of the fund would be adjusted for inflation and student population over time. The fund becomes active July 1st to 2017. And the way this would work is school districts would submit plans for the specific programs that they are doing, that they want to do to improve their high school graduation rates and student readiness for college and careers. These programs would need to fit into 3 different categories, which are called pillars in the documentation. One is career technical education, or CTE, college-level educational opportunities like AP programs and college credit, and dropout prevention strategies. A yes vote requires the state to fund the dropout prevention career and college readiness program and protects the funding for intended use. A no vote means nothing changes in the way that we're doing it now. So I'm going to take my 3 minutes to talk about in support of the yes vote. Since we were tied, we're special, so we're going to take an extra minute of your time. As I said before, data shows that our 8th graders test at or above their peers when they leave the 8th grade. Then something happens. Something is drastically wrong in that they come out in the bottom 2 or 3 or 4 compared to the other states. The programs that I listed for the 3 pillars, those programs have shown a high correlation. I'm ignoring you. This high correlation with improved graduation rates within Oregon schools. So there's some pilot programs that have been run throughout the state and across the U.S. And there are a number of examples. You can find them on the website. You can find them in a lot of the press articles that have come out over the last 6 months or so. Our K-12 underfunding challenges are most evident in high schools. Measure 98 addresses this by putting committed dollars in the next budget where they are most needed to shore up Oregon's previously targeted investments in the lower grades. You cannot love me off this stage.
Jean Marie's going to cut off the microphone.
I have a loud mouth. I need it. It's not really.
1 minute.
We'll see. I know, I hang out with far too many executives. Anyway, you want me to get off? Implementation of measure, from an implementation standpoint, we need it, the programs are right. Implementation leverages the skills that are already existing in ODE. The regional education service districts are serving our diverse communities, are ready to help with collaboration, skills, and support. From an equity standpoint,
Oregon's economy and future are threatened because our education system is struggling to graduate and prepare our young people for college and living wage careers. Our state's high school graduation rates are abysmal. In 2015, we ranked 47th in the nation. If Oregon's economy is to thrive in the future, we must invest in our schools. Where we disagree is whether the tight focus of Measure 98 can accomplish the outcomes that the ballot measure promises. The measure assumes that our poor graduation rates are caused by limited choices in the curriculum and that an investment at the high school level will overcome these limitations. Specifically, we struggle with how the measure addresses 5 important issues. Issue 1 is equity. Oregon has diverse school districts and even more diverse individual students within them. Serious disparities in achievement and opportunity continue to exist despite the current funding formulas that are meant to take into account the needs of students in each community in our state. We need better ways to reach underserved students across the state. Issue 2 is the age of intervention. Investing in programs at the high school level is too little, too late. Investment in younger students would be a more effective use of resources in order to put them on the path to later success. Issue 3 is cost. Measure 98 is an unfunded mandate that could potentially increase the budget hole and may result in less money being available for other core services, including education. In addition, the $800 funding per student is not enough to deliver the kind of program scale and success that the measure promises. Issue 4 is human capital and school readiness. Even if Measure 98 can provide enough money for school districts across the state to implement solid programming, successful educational innovation requires much more than just a cash infusion. Your committee heard stories of incredibly motivated and passionate teacher advocates who build innovative and effective career programs in their schools. But your committee isn't sure such examples are easy, replicable, and scalable. And it's even less clear how new best practices around program of value to our 21st century economy will be identified and incentivized. Issue number 5 is the City Club's stance on budgeting by ballot measure. Though your committee is not strictly bound by past City Club reports, both times City Club research committees have studied this, putting budget questions before voters. They've cautioned against it. It's not a popular stance to suggest voting against a ballot initiative focused on addressing the educational needs of Oregon students. It seems nearly impossible to speak against this measure when our schools are in such trouble. But in the opinion of this group of committee members, the "we've got to do something" argument is not a good enough reason to support Measure 98. We advise that City Club membership recommend a no vote on Measure 98. Our state and Oregon students deserve much better. Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to open it to the floor. The folks on the yes, we had more than 5 people sign up to speak ahead of time, and so of the 8 folks that signed up, we randomly selected 5. Those 5 speakers are Tim Nesbitt, Bobby Regan, Carmen Rubio, Julia Meyer, and Jesse Beeson. For the no, we only had 1 person sign up, Meg Merrick. So if anyone else would like to sign up to speak on the no side, we have 4 more slots available. I'd like to remind you that we're going to stick to 1 minute. You have your timekeepers right in front of you with the 15-second card and the bell at the time. So I appreciate you guys sticking to the process here with a timeline. We're going to go ahead and start with the no first.
Okay, again, I'm Meg Merrick. It was on the research committee on the no side. Given the fact that this is an incredibly important issue and the fact that it's about our kids, it's not surprising that there is no organized opposition to this measure. It is significant, however, that after looking under the hood, that that half of us found ourselves having to vote no on this measure. The issue is incredibly complex. The impacts of the measure are also incredibly complex and have not been analyzed by the proponents very well. We urge that before you vote, and it seems like it's a little against the process that's happening here, but that before you vote, to carefully read our report and thoughtfully read our report before you vote. Thank you.
Tim.
Tim Nesbitt, City Club member. A little context. Ever since my daughter entered kindergarten the year after Measure 5 passed, I've been working with many of you, and this club has been advancing the debate over how to undo the damage of that measure. In the meantime, our students are suffering, our graduation rate declines. The debate has tended to polarize between those who want to fix our schools and those who say, no, we should fund our schools. We should connect the two, which Measure 98 does. We've learned from the unproductive debates we've had over the last 25 years or so since Measure 5 passed. We need to bring to the voters a proposal that's concrete enough that we can show we have best practices here and a strategy for funding them that can really improve outcomes for students in our high schools in particular, where, as you heard, our ninth graders are entering doing just fine, or at least average nationally, in math and reading, but they're falling off a cliff by 12th grade, and we're in the bottom 5 of all states when it comes to high school graduation. Now, up till now, our goals have been aspirational. This is practical.
Time.
This answers the question of what we need to do to invest in our schools to move the needle for kids in today's classrooms.
Thank you.
I'm David Crandall, a City Club member and 45-year head of a nonprofit involved in school improvement. I urge you to take a look at page 9 in the full report to really see the difference between the substantive reasons there are so many people against this versus those who are for it. Further, this measure was advanced by an organization called Stand for Children, which is now known as Stand on Children, since they're part of the corporate reform initiative that has subjected your third graders to 9 hours of tests. These monies will come out of general education monies and will set up more silos of administrative bureaucrats at the state and district level, both of which have shown themselves incapable of functioning fully, even if there were the so-called best practices proponents suggest. I would like to see their data on that subject. Thank you. I urge you to vote no.
Bobby.
Hi, I'm Bobby Regan. I was a PTA president in 2 schools, and I was on the Portland School Board for 12 years. The City Club Research Committee unanimously stated that the current state of education in Oregon threatens the state's future and economy. I have fought for adequate school funding for 2 decades. I'm not looking for a perfect measure. I'm looking for a measure that will enable school districts across Oregon to restore and scale up what works. We know that kids who take 2 or more vocational education courses have a graduation rate 15 points higher than those who don't. We know that dual credit programs and college-level classes boost high school graduation rates and college success. We know that when kids get added supports, dropout rates decline and student achievement scores. Measure 98 has no organized opposition. Please vote yes.
Carmen.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Rubio, and I'm the executive director of Latino Network. It's a nonprofit that works with Latino youth and families, and I'm a proud co-petitioner of Measure 98. Measure 98 is a great opportunity for equity in our schools. For us, this isn't just about data points and about graphs. This is about real youth lives, real family lives, and real futures. As a co-petitioner and ED of this nonprofit, every day I see the youth and families that are impacted by decades of disconnection and disempowerment and disinvestment. Times have changed, and so have our communities. Schools, after years of underfunding, are very under-equipped to meet the needs of today's students, today's diverse students. Measure 98 enables student high schools to provide a range of proven strategies and multiple pathways for multiple students. It's not just one path for all. This is about an opportunity for a good education, a good future, and a good career, and a good life in Oregon.
Time.
The time is now. Our students are worth it. Please vote yes for 98. Thank you.
We still have 3 slots on the no side if anyone wants to line up on that. Julia?
Good evening. My name is Julia Meyer, and I'm the director of the Coalition of Communities of Color. We're an alliance of 19 culturally specific community-based organizations, and we support Measure 98 because it improves outcomes for students of color and advances racial justice. It is significant to us that Measure 98 is co-led by Latino Network, an organization of color. And I know that sometimes racial inequities here and in this country feel insurmountable, especially now and especially in education. But it is not true. People and systems have created these racial inequities, and we are the ones that can eliminate them. Measure 98 is part of that solution. I've heard you all tonight about your respect for process. I respect process too. Communities of color have been to the legislature time and time again, and children of color are failing. This is the process. We are going to the ballot. We are going to you. Please join us.
Jesse.
Yep. I was given some notes, but I'm throwing them out. You know, 12 years ago, I brought someone who I was kind of fond of to my first City Club State of the State address. 12 years later, I am married to that man, even though some guy flirted with him at that lunch 12 years ago. And there, Ted Kulongoski talked about how our schools were failing 12 years ago. 12 years ago, City Club was obsessed with the idea that we cannot legislate and spend money by ballot. I don't know about you, but 12 years later, when the chief petitioner is Ted Kulongoski, and 12 years later, when we are making the same argument, I am tired. And I am tired of one principle, that we should not spend money by the ballot, overcoming what to me is a larger principle and a promise that we make this state better than when we found it. And this is not the case right now. We are at the bottom, ladies and gentlemen, and we have nowhere to go. We have nowhere to go. I ask you, please, to ask which principle is more important in this case. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we are now closing the floor for debate, so we're going to move to vote again. We'll do an initial hand raise, and then if we need to count, that we will. So first, those of you who would like to recommend a yes vote on ballot measure 98, please raise your hand with your yellow sheet. Ready? Okay, Chris, Jean Marie, good? Okay, ballots down. If you'd like to vote, recommend a no vote on 98, please raise your ballot. Count. Okay, we're going to go ahead and count just to make sure. So if you could please hold up the yes again, hold them up high, and let us take a second here to count. We want to make sure we get this right. Keep them up for the yes, please. Keep your ballot up if you want to vote yes on measure 98. Keep them up. Are we good on the yeses? Yep. Yes, no? We good? Okay. So ballots down. Okay, please raise your ballot now if you would recommend a no vote on Measure 98. Yes. Okay, the yes carries. So the yes recommendation will be sent to the full membership for a vote tomorrow. I have 2 announcements before we go to our last measure of the night. Yep. Oh, what was the count? Jean Marie or Chris? Are we sharing what the count was? No, we're not sharing that. Can see us afterwards. It wasn't really secret. You guys all had your hands up. Okay, 2 more City Club announcements before we go to our last measure of the night. If you know anyone who would like to be a civic scholar, which is our internship program at City Club, we would love to have them apply. Come see me or any of the staff or Mike afterwards, and we'll make sure that you get the application process. It's a really exciting opportunity for young folks who want to work with us at City Club. Also, really excited, as all of you know, this is our centennial year. We've been debating issues for 100 years, which I think is pretty awesome. And so we're going to have a big gala to celebrate it. So please mark your calendars, October 29th, Saturday, October 29th. We're going to be at the Art Museum, and we're going to have a really awesome party to celebrate 100 years of our civic engagement. So mark your calendars for that. Okay. All right, are we ready? I don't know if I'm ready. Okay, Measure 97. You may have heard about it. Corporate tax increase. So this is the final measure of the evening. I'm going to remind folks that we have a process, and we're going to keep folks to 3 minutes. I know it's quick, but you got to be succinct in your arguments. So we're going to have Stephen Kafori represent the majority recommendation and Jennifer Rollins represent the minority. So come on up.
In 1990, the anti-government and anti-tax movement succeeded in passing Ballot Measure 5, shifting funding of education from local property taxes to the state. As a result, Oregon's tax system does not produce sufficient revenue for the state's needs. Subsequently, the same forces secured passage of Ballot Measure 25, requiring a 60% supermajority of the legislature to pass new taxes, preventing the state from dealing with the problem. Along with the deficits and economic downturns caused by our reliance on the personal income tax, this has placed our state in a precarious position. I don't need to go through the problems of what we are not funding to make my speech shorter tonight. You've heard tonight some of the problems about what we'd like to fund that we don't have the money to fund, and we're trying to shift money from one place to another to fund. This brings in new money. Next January, when the legislature meets, they're going to be facing a $1.35 billion shortfall. Legislative leaders told the committee it will not get better in the future. No disagreement exists so far on anything I've said among committee members. The majority feels the state needs a large new source of revenue now. Hardworking Oregonians and small businesses are paying their fair share presently. Large out-of-state corporations are not. Oregon has the lowest taxes on businesses of any state in the United States. The only realistic solution for resolving the situation is Ballot Measure 97. This measure will restore the lost revenue from Ballot Measure 5. It will allow full funding of the quality education model It will prevent severe cutbacks to human services, fund outdoor school, and can fund vocational training. It will increase without taking money away from some other program and putting people out of work. It will increase the stability of our revenue stream, helping to prevent budget cuts from future economic downturns, and expand our bonding capacity, allowing investment in failing infrastructure. What will it not do? Will not tax most C corporations. 85% of the money will be paid by corporations with sales of more than $100 million. Despite the scare tactics you'll be hearing, it will have a minimal impact on nearly all Oregon taxpayers and Oregon businesses and move Oregon from dead last to the bottom third of the states who tax corporations. Politics is the art of the possible, so let's take a look at realistic options. Oregon is the only state where no tax can be passed without a vote of the people, which eliminates the sales tax. I'm going to talk a little bit longer. This is more important than anything we've got. This takes everything we're talking about tonight and puts it into one package. I'll be very brief. We cannot pass any other tax. We can't pass a sales tax because it requires a vote of the people. We can't do property taxes because that's frozen in the Constitution. A tax on corporate profits, although a good idea, won't work because of corporate bookkeeping, which is why this legislature already passed a corporate minimum tax based on sales, which just expands. There are flaws in this proposal, just there are flaws in every tax proposal. It's obviously better if the legislature does it. The legislature hasn't done it and cannot do it.
So you see the unruly committee members I've been dealing with for the last 3 months? Look, I hate standing here to try to convince you to vote no on Measure 97. I don't mind the public speaking, and I've been raked over the coals at City Club before, but it's really because I, like the rest of the minority, believe that Oregon could use more money, and particularly for schools. Before tonight, I've never voted against a tax that was intended to fund schools. I think that investing in the community is good for everyone. And selfishly, I have 2 4.5-year-olds who in like 366 days are gonna go off to Portland Public Schools. So I want them to be well funded. But I just can't support Measure 97. It is bad policy. It targets only C corporations. And before your eyes glaze over, it's really important to pay attention. Albertsons is a limited liability company, so it won't pay this tax. Neither will New Seasons, which is a B corporation, but Fred Meyer will pay. And that's not fair. And if there's some compelling public policy reason that we like Albertsons better than Fred Meyer, fine, but I don't know of one. And there's plenty of other unfair things too. Talk about utilities. In Eugene, residents get their utilities from a co-op. They won't pay. Here in Portland, we get our utilities or electric from a C Corp. They're already talking about raising rates 3 to 4%. So whether you pay this tax as a citizen depends on where you live. That's unfair. It also depends on what kind of power you choose. If you want natural gas, you get them from a C Corp. If you want electric and you're in some places, you don't pay. All of those things should not be determined by tax policy. Gross receipts, which is what this is, have no relationship on a company's ability to pay. Don't confuse big sales numbers with big out-of-state corporations. Wholesalers, auto dealers, grocery stores, and this one really surprised me, lots of healthcare providers have tiny margins. A lot of them are lower than 2.5%, so that would wipe out the entire profit for some companies, and some really important companies. Furthermore, there are systemic budget issues that won't be fixed. An influx of cash won't fix the PERS problem. And in fact, the unfunded portions of PERS are targeted to eclipse even this largest tax increase ever in Oregon history in 10 years without fixes to the system. Similarly, education has funding problems that came up after Measure 5, and schools could be in the same position in the future in a deficit in spite the biggest tax increase in Oregon history. And finally, the claim that Oregonians aren't going to pay this tax is just false. The average family is going to pay $600, and even if the tax is passed on to shareholders entirely, and no one believes that's true, Oregonians are shareholders. Some people are shareholders, but PERS, for example, is a huge shareholder. The state has shareholder investments, and everyone is going to pay. There's no free lunch. So while I share the majority's concern about lack of investment in education, senior services, and healthcare, there are better ways to address those issues than with a tax proposal that's the outcome of 22 public opinion polls, rather than reason, analysis, and policy. So I would urge you to vote no on Measure 97. Thank you.
Took my paper. Okay, all right, so we're gonna now go to the floor for debate. My script. Okay, so this is the final debate of the evening, so you guys should know the rules well by now. A minute for each person. We're gonna alternate between sides. The yeses had more than 5 people sign up, so we randomly selected 5. The against, we just had 3. So we'll have the opportunity for 2 more folks to join on the floor. So over on the yes microphone, if we could please have, is it Carol Meyer? Paul Meyer? Paul Meyer, sorry. Paul Meyer, Steve Weiss, Chris Lowe, Chuck Shukoff, and Stoll? Bob Stoll, okay. Sorry. These are all randomly selected. So we have the 5 that are the yeses, and then on the noes, we have Stephen Conway, Eric Fruits, and Rebecca Tweed. So we will start with the yeses on this go-around.
Grover Nordquist and his henchmen, who were found guilty of fraud and fined over $1.5 million, imposed 21 years ago this supermajority on our legislature. And all the ballot measures that come screaming here for your support, which we say, oh no, that's not the way to do it, is because we have a dysfunctional ability in this state caused by people like Grover Nordquist to make a progressive state. They've turned us into an anti-tax haven. Now, what does the minority say? The minority says, oh, well, we could do something different. There's got some problems with this. This is an ingenious tax. And it does corporations, which are the lowest taxed in Oregon and any place in the country. And it does what is necessary to enable the legislature to fix all these problems so we don't have these series of constitutional and budgetary initiatives year after year after year because we can't function.
Time.
I just want to finish by saying the minority was asked what they would propose instead. They said they couldn't come up with anything better.
Stephen?
First of all, I do have an interest in this because I have 2 lovely granddaughters in the Portland Public Schools, so I'm not a disinterested observer. But that said, as a political scientist, an economist, and a Democrat, I would say to you that implementing complicated tax policy by citizen initiative is asinine and insane. As feckless as the legislature may be, it's their job. The premise of the proponents of this gross receipts tax is based on a lie, that Oregon has the lowest tax rate in the country. In reality, 23 states have lower marginal rates. They base this on this report, which is not about tax rate, but it's about tax burden, which is a completely different matter. They have cited a study that measures its tax burden, but at the same time, fully 5.9% of Oregon's revenues in their corporate tax is the 12th highest in the country. This is a deeply cynical effort to manipulate low and no information voters to support an ideologically driven, deeply flawed proposal, playing on emotion rather than reason. This thing deserves to be.
We're getting strict. Keep it to a minute. We're getting strict. Okay, Steve, you're up.
My name is Steve Weiss. I'm board president of the Oregon State Council for Retired Citizens and a City Club member. For years now, Oregon has been disinvesting in services for seniors, including affordable housing, and it's had serious consequences. Currently, 2/3 of Oregon seniors retire with little or no personal retirement savings, and there are 21,000 more seniors living in poverty than just a decade ago. These are people like me who are one health emergency or other expected expense away from being unable to afford rent or food. And unfortunately, if nothing changes, if we don't find a new source of revenue, it's not going to get any better. Not only is Oregon facing a $1.35 billion funding shortfall next biennium, but the population of adults in Oregon over the age of 75 is expected to grow by 233,000 over the next decade. If our services don't expand to meet that demand, we're going to be facing a serious crisis. But where should that revenue come from? Certainly not small businesses or working families. The reality is that Oregon has the lowest corporate taxes in the nation.
Time.
I therefore urge you to join me in supporting the majority report. Thank you very much.
Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Fruits. Our country's been around for 225 years or so, and no state has ever come up with a tax like this. Is it because no one ever thought about it? No, they thought about it and they said it's a stupid idea. It is a bad idea. This tax will affect all of you every day, every minute of your life. From the minute you wake up, when the alarm clock goes off, you will be paying for that electricity. When you get in your car, you will be paying for that gas in the tax. Go get your Starbucks, you're going to be paying for it. Stop at Fred Meyer's on the way home, you're going to pay for it. Oh, but my kids won't pay. Yes, they will. Pull in front of the school, you'll see a Cisco truck parked in front. Your school lunches will be taxed too. Every single part of your life will be taxed with this. It will amount to about $600 for every person in this room. That's a vacation, that's Christmas presents. Can you afford 2 more car payments? If you can't, vote no.
Chris.
Hi, I'd like to yield my time to Mary Nolan, please.
Thank you. I'm Mary Nolan, City Club member, and I am here today both for myself and for Planned Parenthood advocates, which recently struggled with this measure and came out unanimously in support of it. And why did we do that? Because this measure will bring in revenue to provide education services, healthcare services, which we know something about, and services for seniors, which we also know something about. We serve over 100,000 people with direct healthcare and education services. It is a fraction of the people in this state who need healthcare services. 1 in 10 Oregonians remains uninsured. This measure will give us the capacity to help them live safe, healthy lives and raise their children in a healthy environment. And finally, we cannot count on the legislature to do this, and I say that as a former legislator. The Constitution prevents the legislature from doing this work because it requires a 60% majority.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you. Rebecca?
My name is Rebecca Tweed. I'm a native Oregonian, a City Club member, and proudly representing the No campaign on Measure 97. It's not because I disagree with the comments that people have said today. It's because Measure 97 is full of false promises that don't get us there. What Representative Nolan, which is how I know her, so I'll refer to her, said, the legislature can't do anything about it. That's still true. The $6 billion tax, $4 billion of which we will pay for, everybody in this room will pay for, is a blank check to the legislature. There's no guarantee that it goes to education. There's no guarantee that it goes to senior services or health care. And all of those costs will increase under Measure 97. Without exemptions for medicine, for insurance, for health care, for food, for electricity, all of the costs that Oregonians will pay will go up. This building will be more expensive. The beer you bought will be more expensive. This is a tax on Oregonians, and I urge you to look into the facts about it before taking a vote. Thank you.
Chuck?
Hi, I'm Chuck Sheketoff, City Club member and Executive Director of the Oregon Center for Public Policy. I'm going to make 4 quick points. I encourage you to visit our website at ocpp.org or becausefactsmatter.org to learn more. First, According to Ernst & Young, for the Council on State Taxation, about 600 large companies like Intel we're members of, we have the lowest business taxes in the country. Do we have the lowest prices? No. Why? Because taxes don't affect your prices. Taxes are 0.8% of the cost of doing business nationwide. Second, as Steve Kafori noted, that we're facing a $1.35 billion shortfall. So the choice is clear. Do we cut all these things, or do we start funding them and invest them? Third, it's statutory. Statutory means the legislature can fix it, any problems in it. And fourth, the Oregonian and others are worried about whether this will fund time travel research or something. I'm not worried about funding getting let out of our schools, getting more foster parents taking care of abused and neglected kids, and addressing the other issues you heard tonight. Thank you.
Jennifer, you're back up. We also have the opportunity for one more person on the no side, if someone wants to stand up behind Jennifer.
It's okay, I have 2 minutes more to say if you need me to. But I was compelled to stand up because I really wanted to respond to Paul's comments about the minority being unwilling or unable to come up with an alternative. And one, we were not tasked with that. Two, we don't have the time or the expertise, and our committee didn't do the research to come up with that answer. And that adds to the point that everyone has made, and I am loath to make it again, that this process is not a way to make sound policy. No one in this room knows or can predict the effects of this tax. And I think it is irresponsible to make policy this way, and I would urge everyone not to. Thanks.
Bob?
I'm Bob Stoll. I urge you to vote I urge you to vote in favor of the majority report. Everyone agrees that 75% of this revenue will be paid by the corporations. This is not going to be passed on, as some have proclaimed. The legislature, because of the ownership, the makeup of the legislature, in order to pass any kind of a tax revenue matter, would have to have a supermajority. And they have been unable to do that through numerous sessions of the legislature. So this is the only way that we are going to get adequate funding for schools, for seniors, and for health care. Thank you.
Last comment of the evening.
Thank you. Peggy Allen, a proud City Club member. This is the only time I agree that corporations are people. I work for one of those healthcare companies in this state that is solely made up of people that live in the state of Oregon. Yes, my company that I work for has been successful. We don't have high margins, and we are going to be affected by this 2.5% that we are not able to pass on. So this is the one time that I am part of a corporation where I consider corporations are people. If you can all afford a 2.5% increase in your individual taxes, I encourage you to vote for this. If you cannot afford a 2.5% personally, vote no. Thank you.
So we have heard compelling arguments from both sides. I'm just going to go ahead and guess that we're going to need to count. So we're not even going to do it 2 rounds. We're going to go ahead and count the first go around. So those folks who are those City Club members who support the majority report recommending a yes vote on Measure 97, raise your hand to be counted. Hold them high. Should I do a quick no? Let me do a quick no. Hands down. No. Okay. That was a pretty clear. So we will be sending the yes vote, which is the majority recommendation on 97, to the full club. Thank you to Stephen and Jennifer and the rest of the committee. I know that was a very tricky. Thank you so much for your time this evening. You'll be receiving your online ballots tomorrow, so please look for them and vote on the initiatives as they come. Thank you for being here, and have a great evening.